Well, good morning, Beacon Church, and welcome. We are so glad that you're worshiping with us today. Happy Mother's Day to all of our moms today, and we want to honor the women in our lives that have loved and supported us along the way. Check out this special message that we have for you today. Today, as we begin our new Series 4, we want to continue to invite you to be a part of our Beacon Loves ongoing opportunities. One of those ongoing opportunities is making donations to end 68 Hours of Hunger.
Childhood food insecurity is a national problem, and it occurs when children receive insufficient food on a regular basis, in many cases missing meals entirely. There are more than 16 million food insecure children in America today. End 68 Hours of Hunger is a public not-for-profit effort to confront the approximately 68 hours of hunger that some children experience between the free lunch they receive at school on Friday afternoon and the free breakfast they receive at school on Monday morning. This weekend program puts nourishing food in the hands of school children to carry them through the weekend. In the month of May, Beacon Church is emphasizing this important organization and collecting donations that End 68 Hours of Hunger can use in the months to come. Grab a bag and a list from the table in the lobby, or find out more information on our website and grab some extra food the next time you are at the store.
And finally, maybe our most exciting announcement, we're going to be having a baptism celebration on Sunday, June 12th. We will have a cookout afterwards, after our service, and we're going to celebrate those who decide to get baptized. Are you ready to get baptized at our baptism celebration? We would love to walk with you as you take this next step. You can fill out our online form and we'll be in touch. All are welcome on this day to join us as we spend some time together and celebrate the amazing things that God has done through Beacon.
Be sure to remind your wife to have all the cleaning and laundry done by Saturday evening so she can enjoy her special day. Bad joke, I know, I'm sorry. Start off the service with a little levity right there. I get it. Moms are special though, right? You gotta love your mom. And I hope today that you take some time to just love on her. And unfortunately, not all of us have mother figures in our lives right now, and it's tough. And so I would just invite you to think about a mother figure in your life that you can just remember and celebrate. It's just a great, amazing way to take a moment to love our moms. Mother's Day is such a special time, and I hope that today you get a chance to do that. The most amazing thing for me when it comes to moms is that moment when a mom gets a smile on her face when she's so proud of her child. I just remember growing up, the moments where I'd do something and my mom would just smile at me and it's almost like a big warm fuzzy hug all in one just from a smile. You have moments like that? Moms are just so special when it comes to things like that. And as I was thinking about that this week, I came across this news clip that I just wanted to share with you. Let's watch this video.
And a heartwarming story out of Memphis where two high school students stepped up to help a freshman who was being bullied over his clothes. Alexa Lorenzo reports.
Awesome. The best day of my entire life was basically.
Freshman Michael Todd was taken out of third period at MLK Prep Monday morning.
I was very happy. I was shocked completely.
He froze when football players Christopher Graham and Antoine Garrett handed him a gift.
You guys are awesome.
A gift that changed Michael's entire school year. Bags full of shirts, shorts, shoes, and more.
He wanted to smile, and I was like, yeah, I think this is going to make him smile. I told him, I said, you know, when we was in the same third period, he was like, yeah, I said, I apologize for laughing at you, and I want to give something to you to make it up.
Michael was...
Man, do you think that their moms were proud in that moment? It's heartwarming, right? And there's so many opportunities to to see the negative in our world, the people that are bullying, that we could focus on it, and taking a moment to realize that there are good stories and good people doing good things and making their moms proud. There's a proverb that starts off, Proverbs 31, and it's a piece of advice from a mom to a king. Verse 1 in chapter 31 of Proverbs says, "The sayings of King Lemuel, an inspired utterance his mother taught him." Now, in this chapter, it goes on, his mom's giving advice, and if you've ever had advice from your mom, one thing you do is listen, and the second thing you do is take it with a grain of salt. But he hears from his mom, here's all the ways that you shouldn't live. She talks about him, it talks in the verses about, don't spend all your money, time, and influence wasting away on beer and wine. It talks about beer and wine in the Bible, who knew? And or on women. It goes through all of this kind of stuff right here to the advice to her son. And what we're going to focus on is what it says in verse 8. She goes, "Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and needy." Sounds like a mom, right? Sounds like something a mom would say to their kid on the first day at school, like, all right, make sure you're a good influence today. But this mom here isn't just talking to any kid. Her kid's the king. Her kid's the king, and he has this influence, this power, this wealth, and he could spend it all on himself to enjoy life. But what's the advice his mom gives him? Don't misuse that. Invest in the things that matter. Look after your subjects. Do something that's bigger than yourself, that has a purpose. We're starting a new series today, and I'm really excited for it. It's called For, F-O-R. And this whole series, we're going to be looking at what are we for as people? We're filled with things that we're against, and if you're on someone's social media, it doesn't take too long to see what they hate and what they're against. And if you watch certain news channels, you see what they're against. And actually, our world is in the political world spent a lot about people voting for people who, because they're against the other person, rather than they're for a certain party or a certain person. But in our lives, wouldn't it be amazing if we were known about what we're for? When they look at our church, when they look at us as individuals, and they say, oh, you go to Beacon Church. Oh, I love that because you're for this. That's what you care about. We have so many things we care about in life. You name your hobby, whether it's cars, sports teams, whether it's creative, whether it's music or art, whatever it is. And when you're for something, you're excited about it, you go all out, right? Money doesn't matter. You're going to buy that ticket to the Celtics game. If anybody has one, let me know. And just kidding. You're going to be for it. You're going to be about it. You're going to put your money where your mouth is, your time where your mouth is. You're going to invest in it. And in this series, what we want to do is say, okay, when it comes to being a Christian, to living like Jesus calls us to live, well, what do we do? What are we for? And so throughout this series, we're going to talk about some different areas that we can be for. One of them today is the poor. Jesus was for the poor. We're going to define what we mean when we say poor, because immediately people are like, oh yeah, I'm pretty poor. It's relative, right? Well, what if we weren't just talking financially? We'll see what we're talking about in a minute with that. We know that Jesus was also for many different areas too. So each week we're going to hit a different topic. Next 4 weeks we're going to hit the poor, the lost. We're going to hit the family and the brokenhearted. Because really, Jesus is for people. God's not just this dictator in the sky that's saying, all right, so unless you do exactly as I say, your life's going to be miserable. No, he's for us. What are we for? Jesus loved the people that no one else was for. That's something that sets him apart. You see it all throughout Scripture about in the Gospels how Jesus lived, and he made it a point where he's literally, the stories about him walking down the street and there's beggars laying on the floor, blind, mute, or you choose what the issue was they're going through. And he's walking and they're calling out his name. As he walks past them, his disciples are like, hey, be quiet. Jesus has got busy, important things to do, and he doesn't care about you right now. And what does Jesus do? Hold on. Quietens his disciples. Looks at the person and says, speak, I'm listening. Jesus was for the people that were overlooked. And in this series, we want to take a moment to see what we're for. Our memory verse is found in Matthew chapter 25, verse 40. Let's go ahead and put it up on the screens, and let's all read it out loud together. It goes like this. The king will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." This is what it means to be a Christian, right? When we look at how Jesus lived, we don't have to be a king. You don't have to have the influence, power, wealth of a king. You just have to be a follower of the King Jesus. And we get to follow how he lived, what he was a part of. And when we're for the things that Jesus was for, now we're not physically doing it for him, but it's like we're doing it for him. And so today we're going to talk all about what it means to be for the poor. Because Jesus was for the poor. Now, poor doesn't just mean financially, right? The idea in the Bible of the word poor really is talking about a bankruptcy of certain areas of your life. So it could be financially poor. Now, if you live in America, relatively speaking, you're rich. So financially, when we think we're poor, you may not have a lot of money, but you have access to so much wealth in this country and help, and the rest of the world lives on a couple of dollars a day. So think about paying your mortgage, your car, your groceries, everything on a couple of dollars a day. It's not going to get you far with this world, right? And so relatively, there's poorness financially, but then there's these other areas. Relationally. You ever felt relationally poor? Sometimes you laugh, right? Oh yeah, I don't have any friends. You try to laugh it away. But it's real. Hurts when you're relationally poor. What about spiritually poor? Emotionally poor or physically poor? There's different times in our life that we've all been in one of those categories. And we're probably going to be in there at some point in life again, right? There's moments in our life that we can be in a poor state. Do you know someone struggling like that today? You know someone who's in a poor state, whether it's relationally, spiritually, emotionally, financially, or physically? Well, what are you going to do about it? This is what we're going to talk about today, is this very simple truth. And if you hear nothing else today, I want you to walk away with this. Be a blessing in a burdensome world. Our world is filled with burdens, right? We got problems. Our friends have problems, our neighbors have problems, and if you're not in a season of problem, you're probably just coming out of one. And if you're not just coming out of one, well, you're probably going into one. There's problems that are happening in our life and in our world, and yet in this, if we're for people, if we're for the poor like Jesus, then we can be a blessing. We can be a blessing in their life. We can show up for them. I love our church because our church shows up. And when I say our church, I don't just mean like the staff and the pastors. I mean like you guys. I got so many stories of people that are blessings in our burdensome world. I just wanted to share some of them with you because we can kind of not always hear the stories because people don't want to be like braggy about them. Nobody's like, oh yeah, I was really good this week. I did all this stuff for the poor. Nobody does that. So I just want to brag on our church for a second and give them as an example of what we can be about. We got friends who are part of nonprofit boards where they meet regularly for veterans. We have a friend who's on a veterans, multiple friends on this. And they look at that and say, there's people in our community that we need to be for. We need to help them. They've given a service and they come back and they can often be neglected and in a poor state, whether it's emotionally, physically, spiritually, financially, or relationally. And they're for those people. They show up. And they invest. We have a guy, a part of our church, who he's retired, and he volunteers his time visiting elderly people just to be an encouragement, to help out around the house, just to listen and give them a conversation that day. Isn't that amazing? We have a lady in our church who she volunteers at a place in Manchester that helps women who are in tough situations in life. And she volunteers her time. But more than just a time, she goes and shows up emotionally and listens and invests. And she talks with them and helps them and spends her time that way. We have people that when other people are going through surgeries or issues in life, they show up with meals. It's funny how food always helps, right? If you're ever in doubt, how can I show up with something? Just bring some food. Just show up. We have friends who, when they heard about another friend who had this crazy life-altering diagnosis, and their roof was leaking? Didn't even blink an eyelid. They said, all right, we're going to show up and go fix their roof. Provide for that to be fixed. We got people in our church that are showing up continually to be a blessing. Why? Well, because we live in a burdensome world. And because Jesus is calling us to be for the poor. Now, you don't have to be for the person who is like the most poor. Sometimes we start to rationalize, right, when it comes to helping people. Like, well, do they really need my help? Maybe. Should I really do this? You tell me. I don't want us to get overwhelmed. You don't have to solve all the world's problems. Sometimes you can feel like, well, I can't help them in this situation. I can't take the burden away from them. But think about the last time you were in an issue where your heart was heavy and you're struggling. How amazing would it be if someone just showed up with an encouraging word? Did they need to take away the burden you're going through? Could they solve or fix all your problems? Probably not, right? But I think that when we show up in people's lives, that we show them we love them, we're for them, and we're here just to be a blessing. Again, this is the focus for us today. Be a blessing in a burdensome world. May is Foster Kid Awareness Month. And I don't know if you are fully aware of what's going on in even New Hampshire. There are so many kids that are in the New Hampshire foster and adoption system, and they just need people to be for them. And one of the things in this series that we're going to do is invite some friends who are heavily involved in that system to come and just share their heart behind it, so that we can pray for them, so we can encourage them, and maybe, it's a stretch, be a part of supporting kids in the foster system. Maybe God's stirring in your heart today saying, all right, you're being called to love on these kids and be for them. How amazing would that be? We can be for the poor, the relationally poor, kids that don't have parents. It doesn't always have to be finance. And don't let financial things be a thing that stops you. We have a church, if you're feeling called to be a part of that, then we want to come around you and help you with that. Because we're a church family, and family goes through things together, right? So this whole series, we just want to ask this question: how can you be a blessing in our world today? One of the best examples of this is found in the story in the text we're going to use today. It is commonly known as the story about the Good Samaritan. And it's found in Luke chapter 10. And just to give us some kind of context on this, the characters in this story, there's a Samaritan guy from Samaria, which was a region in the Middle East. And then there was a priest and a Levite. And these are religious people. And the priest and the Levite, the Jewish people, they hated the Samaritans. And to get around from certain parts where they lived to Jerusalem, the quickest way was to go through Samaria. But they hated them so much, they wouldn't walk the quickest way. They'd go all the way around to get to Jerusalem so they didn't have to come into contact with those Samaritan people. It's kind of like, I don't know, sometimes we do things like we don't want to go to the bad areas, the downtown area, so we go all the way around because we don't want to be around the bad people. We're not really that much different, but there's these different people at play in this story. And to set up the story, it's all about Jesus talking to this religious lawyer in the temple. And so in verse 25 of chapter 10, it says, on one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. Teacher, he asked, what must I do to inherit eternal life? Jesus says, what is written in the law? He replied. How do you read it? He answered. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. You have answered correctly, Jesus replied. Do this and you will live. But he wanted to justify himself, so he asked Jesus, and who is my neighbor? Now, right here, this lawyer, he's asking a question of Jesus, and this wasn't uncommon. There would be kind of like theological questions going back and forth in the temple, and there'd be a lot of communication about it, and he's asking a good question here, but his motives were bad. You ever been in a part of a conversation where someone's asking a question and you really know why they're asking it, and you're like, oh, come on, dude. It's kind of what's going on here. He's saying, okay, so in essence, how am I supposed to get to heaven? And he thinks he knows the right answer because he's like, Like, I'm going to ask this leading question because then I'm going to look good because I know the right answer. And him and Jesus go back and forth. But here's the problem. He did know the right answer, but he wasn't willing to apply that answer personally in his own life. How often do we do that? We know how we're supposed to live. We know what God calls us to do. We know the good we ought to do, but I don't know. That's going to cost me a little too much today. That's going to be a little too difficult today. Well, I really like her, so do I really have to be pure in that? Like, come on. Be real. It's the 21st century. And we start to rationalize, right, and say like, oh, what about this? What about that? But here's the problem. He wouldn't admit his own lack of love for God and people. Just wanted to obey the rules. He'd grown up with the law. He was being obedient to it. He thought he was doing everything that was right. And then in this, he tries to justify himself in it when Jesus is kind of pointing out what's going on. And he wriggles out of this predicament with kind of like that question that we do. We're like, well, define what you mean by neighbor. That's how we do. We rationalize things. We say, all right, so I'm not allowed to do this. Well, what does this really mean? What is it referring to? And many times we really know what it's referring to. But in this, he's saying, so who is my neighbor? And he's getting all caught up like, okay, so if I'm supposed to love people, then does that mean any person? Like, should I love this person, but not the Samaritan person? And he just keeps on rationalizing. And I think that it directly relates to churches and us today. I really feel like many churches are filled with people still talking about how to love instead of actually loving like Jesus calls us to. You ever get caught in a moment like that? Like you kind of feel led to love people, led to help people, led to be a blessing. But it's like, but what if they use that money for drugs? That's what we always say, right? When you see a homeless person. I can't help them. They're going to do bad stuff. Okay, maybe. But I hope that's not the first thing we think about. I've started to change my mindset on that when I started to say, well, okay, so they say, I'm hungry, I need food. Let's go get them food. Well, how about we just talk to them? Look at them. Converse with them. And it's not just poor financially, right? It's all areas of life. It's the person who relationally is poor. And quite often people who don't have a lot of friends, there's a reason why they don't have a lot of friends, because they're difficult to be around. Do I have to love them? Really? Why me? Why do I have to be around them? Be a blessing in a burdensome world. Churches are filled with people. Don't point out who it is. Churches are filled with people who we get so stuck in just trying to say, what should we do? We end up doing nothing at all. And Jesus, he's trying to help us with this. So he goes on to tell the story of the Good Samaritan. Verse 30, in reply, Jesus said, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away. Leaving him half dead, a priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed on by the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring oil and wine on it. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said, and when I return, I'll reimburse you for any extra expense you may have. Jesus then asked, which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of the robbers? The expert in the law replied, the one who had mercy on him. Jesus said some amazing words. Go and do likewise. The problem about helping people is even when they get themselves in the mess, it's still that we have to help them. It feels like, well, why should I have to help that person when they made bad decisions in their life? And as I look at this, I'm just thinking about this road that the man was traveling on. It was renowned for being a terrible road. Oftentimes there was robbers and bandits that would attack people, and yet this man is walking down this road on his own. Doesn't it sound like he should have made some better decisions in life? And yet, Jesus is teaching us something. it directly relates to many areas of my life when I think about times that I've been called to show mercy, like the Good Samaritan. And in those moments, I just remind myself that mercy is given, not earned. And that really convicts me. Like, it's not like the Good Samaritan didn't look at that guy and was like, oh, you need help? Oh, no, you're all set. No, he just went and helped him. He didn't look at him and say, I told you so. You shouldn't have walked down this road. You should have known better. We see people in our lives where this happens, right? Maybe it's a son that's just been wayward. Like, just makes bad choices. And you're just tired and being like, come on. Like, make some good choices in life. It's not too difficult. I've helped you. I'm here for you. Like, do I have to keep on showing you this way? Well, yeah. Be a blessing in a burdensome world. Now, it doesn't mean you enable them, right? It doesn't mean you help them the same way every single time, but we're called to be that blessing. Maybe it's a neighbor or a friend that, man, they're always in a financial bind, always asking for help. Okay. Help them. Technically, the Levite and priest, as Jews, were the neighbors to the guy that was laying on the street. But they didn't act like a neighbor. So when this guy is asking, this lawyer is asking, so who is their neighbor? Jesus kind of flips it on his head, and he kind of changes the question. He makes it less about who is your neighbor, and he's really saying, well, who are you being a neighbor to? Because we make everything about ourselves. You notice that in life? We're selfish. When I think about things I do in life, it always starts with, what do I want to do today? Man, I think we need to flip the question. If we're asking, well, who is my neighbor? Who can I be a blessing to? Well, I think the answer is anybody in front of us that has a need. If there's someone in front of us that has a need, we can be a blessing to provide for them. And yes, it might cost us something, but the priest and the Levite were expected to do something. They traveled the road often. Maybe we'll think maybe they thought it might be a trap. They could have, right? Maybe this guy's faking it, and if I help him, then he's going to like rob me, and then I'm going to be the poor lowly guy down there in the gutter. Maybe they just were busy. They're on their way. They're obviously going somewhere, and they didn't have time to stop. Well, we can all be in moments like that. And I think that in those moments, we can stop and say, like, okay, am I too busy to be a blessing today? I hope we don't get to that point. I hope we don't live like this priest and this Levite, but I hope we act. Jesus ends it by saying, go and do likewise. Be like the Good Samaritan and be a blessing in a burdensome world. When given the opportunity, you can always come up with a reason not to do it. You can always come up with a reason not to be a blessing. And sometimes they're good reasons, right? Charles Spurgeon, a famous pastor, he says this, I never knew a man refuse to help the poor who failed to give at least one admirable excuse. So if helping the poor, if being a blessing is based upon whether you have a good reason not to do it, you're never going to do it. So what should we do? Be a blessing. You'll see a common theme in this message today. The common theme is be a blessing in a burdensome world. Act. When the opportunity comes, don't wait. You don't have to take the whole burden away from them, though. Like, the inaction sometimes can be because you feel like you can't fix all their problems. When you're in a bind, when you're in a tough situation in life, quite often, it's not really the physical issue that's going on. It's more the internal, emotional, spiritual thing. And when somebody just shows up in your life and encourages you, doesn't it help you get through the issue you're going through? If you're going through a divorce, like, your friends can't solve your problems. They can't help your marriage work, but they can walk with you through it. When you lose a loved one and people show up with meals, encouragement, a text, a phone call, it means the whole world, right? Be a blessing. So in our lives, how do we show up? Well, I hope you're the type of person that shows up for someone's worst day, whether they caused it or not. I hope you're the type of person that shows up physically to show solidarity. There's always people that pass away, right? There's funerals and wakes. And have you ever had that moment where you're wondering, should I go to this funeral? Like, did I know him well enough? Like, I'm kind of busy. Should I cancel my plans? I really think that if you're wondering, you should. You should be a blessing. Do you know the right thing to say when you get there? Probably not. Do you have to say anything when you get there? No. Just listen. Send them an encouraging text. I often visit people in the hospital, and when I go there, before I go, I'm trying to decide, should I go? Do they want visitors? And I just decided a long time ago that I don't really mind if they want visitors or not. I'm going to go. And if I get stopped at the door, I'll stand at the door and pray. Because I just want people to know that there's someone that loves them that will show up on their worst day. We get to be a blessing. We get to show up. And it's not just physically, it can be emotionally, it can be financially. Money's a weird topic, right? Because I don't have a lot of money, but someone has a need. Well, if you have money and they have a need and you feel led to give money to them, give money to them. Help them. That's okay. And then it comes like, but then they used it for something bad. That's not on you. You didn't know what they were going to do. We get to be a blessing. And my favorite one is prayerfully. When people are poor spiritually, we have a God that has access to abundance. You don't know the right stuff to say. You don't know the right things to do. Pray and bring that prayer with you to them. And you can say I'm praying for you. But what I love is in those moments when someone shares their burden, you can say, can I pray with you right now? Because when you pray with them right now, it gives them that encouragement, but it also brings them into that moment where they can connect with God. Don't wait. Pray. Be a blessing. Be a prayerful blessing. And we often don't know the backstories to people's lives. You don't know how they grew up as a child. You don't know their work experience. You don't know relational history. We often don't know those things, and so we need to be careful not to judge in that moment. We get to be a blessing. Now, we're busy. There's things that it costs us. I love in this story how the Samaritan, there's one phrase that maybe you'd missed it. It says he put him on his donkey. And I love that because, A, I don't really ride donkeys, so it's fun to think about. But B, he had to walk. The guy that was injured, the guy that was suffering, the Samaritan, he picked him up and put him on the donkey, and he walked and led the guy all the way there. Man, that probably slowed him down, right? He probably had places to go. He was already going down this dangerous path. Physically, that took something out of him. He left money to provide for the guy. It cost him something to be a blessing in this moment. The thing is, to have an impact, usually it costs us something. Now you just got to be willing to show up and be a part of it. Generally speaking, Jews and Samaritans, they despised each other. There was this racial bias going on, religious bias going on, as we talked about before. And with that, every reason was given for that Samaritan to just walk right by this guy. There was no reason for him to stop. I can imagine, if it was me, the first thing going through my head would be, would he stop for me if these situations were reversed? You ever think like that? All right, I'm tired of being the friend that always reaches out, that always encourages. I just get convicted with that. Recently, I had a buddy that, he just went through the ringer. In the space of a month, he lost his grandma, lost his dad, and his girlfriend, her dad, had a stroke in the space of a month. I'm like, man. And so I called him, and he didn't answer. So I called him again, and he didn't answer. So I texted him, and he didn't respond, and I kind of got annoyed. I'm like, dude, come on, I'm reaching out. What's your problem here? And then I got convicted. So I called him again, and he didn't answer. And so I texted him, and he said, I'm so sorry. It's been crazy. I'll call you tomorrow. You know what he did? Called me tomorrow, and we talked. And I can't help but think, man, why wouldn't I just want to be a blessing to someone with such a big burden going on in their life? Why is it that my heart has to get in the way and I have to be selfish and get all hurt and upset about this situation? I think that we have this opportunity to follow how Jesus calls us to live, to be that blessing, regardless of what it costs us, regardless of what we're doing. And yes, there's different seasons and different investments that we can make in certain things, but I hope that we see that it's about a heart issue. This lawyer was saying, I'm a good Christian. I'm a good Jew. I'm following the law. But yet he missed the whole thing about Jesus. Instead of passing by, the Samaritan loved him sacrificially. He didn't wait to be asked. He just saw the issue and addressed it. He just decided, I'm going to be a blessing today. And he gave freely of his time and his resources, because God works through our faithful living. That's how he works. The religious man can give the right answer every day. Churches are filled with people that say the right answer, but when it comes to leaving church and the opportunities they have to live it out, they don't. Now, yeah, we're not going to be perfect. We're not going to get it right every time, but we can follow the call that Jesus has made, and he makes it simple. He just says, be a blessing in a burdensome world. Act. It's Mother's Day. You know what? If you're a kid in here today, you know what the best blessing you can be today? Smile in the photo. Be a blessing. Be a good kid today. And then try it every other day. But even for us as adults, even for us as grown-ups, there's so many opportunities. Don't get in the way of what God wants to do through you. Faithfully live and act. When it comes to mercy, it is difficult, because when people hurt us or we don't want to show mercy, it's tough. But the thing with mercy is, it doesn't need reasons. You don't need a reason to show mercy. You just need to be faithful and obedient. Now, there's times where, you pick a relationship, whether it's a relationship with your spouse, and you need to show mercy, even though, they're just annoying you. The same thing. How hard is it to do it every day? Whether it's your parent, your kid, a friend, a coworker, whatever it is, mercy doesn't need reasons. It just needs people to be faithful and show up with a blessing. Oh, that's not fair. Why do I have to be the bigger man? Well, you want to know why? Because once upon a time, you were laying down in a gutter, bleeding, poor, emotionally, physically, spiritually, all of them. And you had a Savior, Jesus, that said, yeah, it's your fault you're down there. You can try to live by the law. That just shows that you need my help. But you know what he did? He looked down, and just like the Samaritan, he reaches, and he didn't need a reason other than his love. His Father said, this is the grace and mercy that I offer to you. And if you've never received that, that is the most amazing gift that you can receive. Mercy from Jesus. No matter who you are, what you've done, or what's been done to you. No matter the reason why you're down in the gutter, because the shame can keep you there, right? No matter why. He just says, come to me. Be forgiven. I will put you on my donkey. I will heal you. I will bring you back. And you can spend eternity with me and my Father in heaven. That's the most amazing blessing you can receive. This whole month of May in this series, we want to invite you to be a part of a practical blessing. We partner with N68 Hours of Hunger, which works with the local school system here in Londonderry, providing food on the weekend for kids that get reduced or subsidized lunches. It sends them with backpacks filled with food for them to eat throughout the weekend. And we have a trailer out front. We already have a quarter of the trailer filled. We want to fill that trailer so we can drive it up to the police station, drop it off, and saying, hey, Beacon loves... we just want this to provide for this community. That's it. And it doesn't have to stop there. We can all be blessings every single day and find ways to do things that love our community. And our hope is that people will see that love and they'll be like, oh, why are you doing that? Well, let me tell you. We get to change the conversation from a reason why we love to a reason, the real reason, which is Jesus. Because we're for the poor. not just financially, but everybody. We're for people, and we want people to know who Jesus is. Are you ready to be a blessing? Our world's filled with burdens. What does it look like today for you to be a blessing? Stay faithful. You may never see the impact, and that's okay. People will. God will always use your faithfulness in amazing ways that you may never ever see, but we're called to be faithful and obedient. Remember today, and every single day, be a blessing, because we live in a burdensome world. Let's pray. God, we just thank you for each person here. We pray just an encouragement on their lives. We pray, Lord, that if there's someone here that, man, he's just wondering who you are and your son Jesus, open their eyes and give them people to connect with. God, help us be a blessing in our world so that this community would know what we're for, so that we would love people well, and so that your son Jesus would be made known. I pray for anybody struggling today in any of these areas. Put people around their lives to just give them that hug, that encouragement. God, we love you, and we pray this in your name. Amen.